So welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. My name is Kathleen Knoll and I'm the Director of Youth Programming with the World Affairs Council of Pittsburgh. And we're really excited to be here tonight with everyone to talk about our Global Travel Scholarship Program. We're also just really excited that it is happening again in 2022 after a pause due to COVID-19. I'm joined by my colleague, Sean Remming, who works at the council as one of our youth programming coordinators. Sean will be someone that you may hear from via email for a variety of reasons during this process. So he's joining us tonight. And I'm also joined by Heather Beard from the Experiment in International Living. I'm going to start this evening by talking a little bit about the council and the actual scholarship and the process to apply for the scholarship. And then Heather is going to talk more about the experiment and the actual programs and the logistics of the programs. And then we'll save the rest of our time for question and answer that we might be able to clarify anything that we went over tonight or anything just about the process or that you're wondering about. So let's get started. So the World Affairs Council of Pittsburgh, if you're not familiar with our work, our role is to convene and connect people around global issues to build a thriving, competitive, and inclusive Pittsburgh. And ultimately, our vision is to create a globally minded and globally connected world that is equitable and just for all. The council has been around. We just celebrated our 90th anniversary. And our youth education programs specifically have been around for over 50 years now. We have a lot of programs in addition to the Global Travel Scholarship. And if you'd like to learn more about any of our programs, you can check them out on our newly rebranded website at worldpittsburgh.org. So the Global Travel Scholarship specifically has been going on for over 15 years. And the program is a needs-based scholarship for high school students who have never traveled abroad before and would not be able to do so without the assistance of the scholarship. The Global Travel Scholarship is a full scholarship, so it covers passport cost, visa fees if they are needed for the program, covers all of the domestic and international flights for the students. It covers all of the program expenses, and Heather will talk later about what all the programs are, but it includes all of the activities and expenses associated with them, including lodging, meals and accommodations, and the experiment fees, and then it also covers health and accident insurance. This upcoming year for 2022, there will be 17 programs that are run in 14 different countries. You can check them all out on the Experiment's website. And they all have different themes, and Heather's also going to show you more about the actual programs in a bit. There's only a few things that the scholarship does not cover. So if you need any immunizations or when you get your physical for the program, those medical costs are not covered. On your actual travels, the only costs that aren't covered are for sort of incidental cost. So things like making telephone calls, if you have to pay for internet, pay to do laundry, if you want to buy gifts or souvenirs or snacks while you're there. There's different sort of estimated amounts of money that you can take. I think it starts kind of at a minimum of typically we say $300 or more that you'll want to take with you. And if you are selected for the travel scholarship, we have a couple of pre-departure orientations where we talk about everything you'll need to know to travel abroad. And during that time, we'll also talk about how you can fundraise if you need to raise some funds to cover those incidental costs. But all of the other costs associated with the program are covered via the scholarship. So who is eligible to apply? So in order to be eligible, you must be a high school student in grades 9 through 11. High school seniors are not eligible for the scholarship. You must live in the Pittsburgh area, and the Pittsburgh area we can define pretty broadly as the southwestern Pennsylvania area. So any of the counties in southern Pennsylvania, you do not have to be in Pittsburgh or Allegheny County specifically. You cannot have traveled outside of the US or Canada in the past. And that is with the exception of any immigrants or refugees who lived abroad prior to coming to the US. Those students are eligible to apply for the scholarship as long as they have not traveled since relocating to the US. You can only apply to the scholarship if you would not be able to sort of financially afford to travel abroad without the assistance of the scholarship. And this year, you have to also be fully vaccinated for COVID-19 before traveling abroad to be eligible. So the actual application process this year is a little bit different than it's been in past years. So I'll go over it here. This is sort of a timeline of all of the steps for the process, and we'll share a link to these slides. Sean, if you would, could you share the link please in the chat? And we'll also email them to you following this event so that you have this timeline for reference, and this will be shared in a variety of emails that you'll receive following the event as well. The phase 1 application is an application that is submitted to the council, so it is not submitted through the experiment. And that first round application is due by Friday, December 10th at 5 p.m. After we receive those applications, we're going to take a week to review them along with the selection committee, and 20 or more students will be notified on December 17th by 5 p.m. that they have been selected for phase 2. Whether you are selected or not selected to move to phase 2, you will be notified by that holiday break for us, which is December 17th. If you are selected to move to phase 2, this is when you're going to complete an application both through the experiment portal, and you're going to complete an application for your passport. Both of those pieces are going to be due by Monday, January 20th. The passport, it's especially important that we get those applications in by January 20th because it takes significantly longer to get a passport right now than it has in the past. If you are selected to move to phase 2, although you are not guaranteed to get the Global Travel Scholarship to actually travel abroad, if we move you to phase 2 and you're one of those students, we will pay for you to get a passport, whether or not you actually become a global travel scholar and travel abroad. And again, the reason for that is just because it's taking so long to get passports processed that you have to start the passport process before some of the decisions are going to be made about who will travel abroad through the Global Travel Scholarship. And so to make sure that any student who would travel abroad has that passport, we will buy it for all of the students that get selected for phase 2. So there'll be at least 20 students that would be eligible for a free passport just for applying. After we review the materials from the phase 2 applications, there will also be interviews that will take place in mid-February. And then we will select our global travel scholars from there. And so we are committed to selecting at least 7 global travel scholars, and there may be more. So it just sort of depends on the actual programs that the scholars who are selected are traveling to and how that works out with the overall budget, but there will be a minimum of 7 students selected to travel abroad with full scholarships. So I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the 2 sort of phases of the application process. So again, the first application for phase 1 is due on Friday, December 10th by 5 p.m. The application can be found at tinyurl.com/2020GTS. Again, you're not applying directly through the experiment for phase 1. That's only going to be if you're selected to move to phase 2. In phase 1, you're going to be asked for both applicant personal information and parent and guardian information. On all of the applications and throughout this entire process, it's important that 1, you provide us with a personal email that you check most frequently. For students, this should not be your school email if you also have a personal email. Sometimes school emails block emails from outside organizations, and so there can be difficulties with you receiving important information or information that you need to respond to. So I would encourage you to use a personal email and to check that frequently during the process. It's also really important that all of your contact information stays up to date, and it's your responsibility to let us know if your contact information changes so that we know how to reach you. And that should be for both your email and your cell phone number. In addition to your personal information, during the phase 1 application, you're also going to be asked to select your top choice programs. You're not guaranteed to get your top choice program in this process, but we do strongly consider which programs you like, and we try to give you one of your top 3 choices. You're also going to be asked some financial information. This information is kept confidential, but is our way of sort of verifying that you do have that financial need to qualify for the scholarship. And then on the phase 1 application, there are also short answer essays. When you are thinking about which program choice you want to make, and again, Heather's going to talk more about what each of the programs offer, but we really strongly encourage you to think about which programs are most connected to your interests and talents. If you have sort of a future career in mind, thinking about how that might connect to future career goals or other goals that you have for the future. We encourage you to do some independent research on each of the countries and learn a little bit more about each of them and what they have to offer and what your experience would be like there. And then also to remember that this choice in the top 3 choices, that you're not guaranteed your top choice, but we do try to use one of the top 3. When you're answering your short answer essays, please try to write in complete sentences, be descriptive and tell a story. Remember to proofread for grammar and spelling mistakes, and don't leave information out. So this first phase is really critical, and we don't get to meet folks until those second phase, the phase 2 interviews. So without meeting you, the only thing that we can sort of base our first impression off of are gonna be these essays. So they're really important. So I would encourage you to have family members, teachers, mentors, read your short essays. We do have a word limit of 250 words for this round. So they're pretty short essays, but it is your chance to tell a compelling story about how getting the Global Travel Scholarship and traveling abroad would impact you and how it would benefit you in your future. So make sure to take these essays really serious, as this is really your best, chance to make an impression on the selection committee. The phase 2 application. So again, we're going to select from phase 1 about 20 students who will move forward to phase 2. These phase 2 applications are going to be due on January 20th by 5 p.m. If you are selected for phase 2, you'll receive all of this information again with detailed instructions of how to move through this process and how to apply through the experiment. But this second application will go into the experiment, and it is a lot of the same information that you will have submitted through phase 1. So a lot of the work will already be done, or at least you'll have a good start towards it. On the phase 2 application, you're going to be asked for a bit more personal information than was asked for in phase 1. And you'll also be asked for a primary parent or guardian information, and that is going to be the parent, that's the point, or guardian, that will be your point of contact during this process. You'll be asked again for your program selections that you listed in phase 1. And then you're going to be asked to complete essays. Most of the essays are going to be the same, but you're just going to have a greater word limit. So you'll be able to expand a bit upon what you wrote in that first round. There is an additional question if your first choice program is one of the programs that has college credits attached to it, and those, I believe, are for juniors only. And again, we just encourage you to have someone read your essays before you submit them through the experiment, and to check for grammar and spelling. Phase 2 also requires letters of reference. If you're selected for phase 2, you'll want to you'll want to send the form, the reference form, to your references as soon as possible. So as soon as you're notified that you have moved to phase 2, you want to get those forms to your references so that they have time to complete them on your behalf. Those can be teachers, mentors, advisors, but they cannot be family members. So you can kind of think about who might be the best folks to reach out to provide a letter of reference if you move to phase 2. The financial aid form that you'll submit through the experiment is more extensive than what is asked for in the phase 1 application. And if you would like an early copy of that, we can show you what questions are asked if you want to start to collect that information. But again, you won't actually submit it until you're notified that you've moved to phase 2. The phase 2 application also asks for a homestay letter. These are written in English unless there is a foreign language requirement for the program that you are planning to attend. And then you must submit the letter in both English and the language of your host family. And the homestay letters, excuse me, are just your opportunity to tell the family that you'll stay with as part of your program about your daily life, your friends and family, and the favorite things to do, just for them to get to know a little bit about you before you come. Heather will talk more about the homestay component of this program during her remarks. It is just one component of the program, but it is something that a lot of students come back and say is one of the most meaningful experiences that they have as part of the trip. So more on that in just a few minutes. If you become a global travel scholar, there are some expectations attached. So one is that we really expect you to be mature and reliable, and that's both throughout the process of applying, being selected, throughout your travels, and then upon returning and following up on the commitments of the scholarship. For pre-departure and both when you return, we ask that you please be responsive to communications. So it's really important that you respond to any emails or other communications within 48 hours. Some things have really firm, hard deadlines. And so when we need information or need to submit things so that you're able to travel, sometimes it's around flight details or other things. We really need you to be responsive and communicative during that process. And we'll talk a bit more about that if you are selected as a global travel scholar, the expectations for that, and just acknowledging receipt of email so that we know that you've received important information from us. Again, please always provide an email that you check frequently and one that's not your school email. Some other expectations of the scholarship is that you would serve as an ambassador for the World Affairs Council of Pittsburgh. So sometimes we ask students to speak about the opportunities, maybe to speak to funders or our board to help us to continue these programs, or just to help us to spread the word within their schools so that they can connect other students to these opportunities. We also expect students to attend all of the meetings that are associated with the travel scholarship, including the pre-departure orientations. Those are really important. When you return from traveling abroad, we expect that you will participate in a group project that's going to be done through the council. That you attend the Welcome Home celebration in the fall. That's always a great time for students to come to share a little bit about their travels. It's typically done as a sort of story slam style event where you can invite your friends and community members and families and teachers to learn a little bit more about your travels abroad and how they impacted you and what you learned about other cultures and the perspectives that you gained. We ask that our most recent cohort of scholars, and sometimes we even dig that back a bit further, also help us to prepare the next cohort for their travel abroad. So if you are selected at the pre-departure orientations, you will meet some of the past scholars and some of their parents to hear a bit more about their experiences and the advice that they have, and what the process was like for them. That's always really helpful. And then we typically also try to connect you with another person that's either traveled to the same country that you're traveling to, or the same region of the world, just so that you can ask any questions that you might have before you travel. And I think that covers that last point there as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Heather to talk more about the experiment and the individual programs. But here is my email and Heather's email, and I'm sure Heather will share hers as well again at the end. I'll add these into the chat in just a minute, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of the event. Heather, I think I can turn it over to you.
Great, thank you, Kathleen. Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Beard. I'm the Director of Enrollment Management and Partnerships at World Learning. And for the experiment, I manage all of our partnerships and our scholarship programs. So I'm excited to be here this evening and talk with you about our programs. And I will just dive right in. So we are looking for experimenters who are curious, open-minded, and willing to learn from and with your peers. Our participants are typically ready to step off the beaten path, experience the world as a classroom, to immerse yourself fully in another culture and build new knowledge and skills to confront critical global issues. And a couple of our programs have Spanish and French language prerequisites. So if you've studied language for at least 1 year, or you're a native language speaker in either French or Spanish, you would be eligible for those programs as well. And I'll definitely talk more about them through the presentation. So I'm going to start off by talking about our history. So we were founded 90 years ago as the Experiment in International Living. We are the oldest high school study abroad program in the US. And in 1932, 90 years ago, a man named Dr. Donald Watt, who was a professor of education at Syracuse University, was dissatisfied with the state of international education at the time. There really was not the traditional study abroad type programs that we see nowadays in college, university settings, and certainly nothing available to younger students at that time. So he decided to lead a journey across the Atlantic with a group of high school age boys, and they were all boys at that time period, from the United States to Germany, to live with families, what we now call the homestay. And he called this the experiment because it really was an experiment, the first time that something like this had been done. And the first cohort of experimenters really learned that by living with another family in Germany, that they were not that different from the families and the people that they met on the program. And at that time, 1932, it was quite revolutionary to do this. Relations between the US and Germany were not the best right after World War I. Of course, there was a Great Depression here in the United States, and in Europe and in Germany, there was also economic troubles and issues related to that after the war. So having these experiences doing this program really was revolutionary and innovative for the time period. One of the first experimenters was a person named Sergeant Shriver. And he went on to start the Peace Corps, the US Peace Corps, during the Kennedy administration in the 1960s. And since that time, the SIT Graduate Institute for International Training was formed here in Southern Vermont, where our offices are based, to train the first generation of Peace Corps volunteers. And out of that came our graduate programs and other study abroad programs at the college level. And we've remained offering our high school programs through the experiment as well since that time. And even during World War II, we offered programs. In Canada, we had 5 students who traveled there from the United States. So the fact that we were not able to offer programs due to the pandemic the past 2 years was quite a change for us. So we're very excited to be turning back to summer abroad programs in 2022. So this summer, as Kathleen mentioned, we are offering 17 programs in 14 countries. We added Italy a couple of weeks ago. So you can see we have programs in the Americas, Europe, Africa, Middle East, Asia, and the Pacific. All of our programs are 3 to 4 weeks long during the month of July. 7 of the programs this summer do offer college credit, and you can see those are highlighted with the asterisk on the map here, and I'll go into more detail about each of the programs. So as Kathleen said, all of our programs are centered around a specific theme. So we have peace, politics, and human rights. And within that theme, we have Germany, international relations, and the EU. South Korea, K-culture and peace building. The Netherlands, LGBTQ+ and advocacy. Switzerland, global health and humanitarian action, and Serbia and Croatia, peace and conflict studies. And as you can see on the screen, the programs with the 2 asterisks do offer 3 college credits. Those are not an additional fee. It's part of the program tuition that we would typically charge and part of the scholarship program. Some highlights from some of the programs within that theme. In the Germany program, the program visits the European Union in Belgium, and all of our programs do have homestays, and I'll talk more about that. So we've continued that to this day. And in the Netherlands, you will learn about Dutch culture, as well as how in the Netherlands, they have some innovative approaches to advocating for citizens related to LGBTQ+ rights. Then moving on to our language training theme, we have Spain, Spanish language and culture, France, French language and culture, Italy, Italian language and culture, Japan, Japanese language and culture, and Jordan, Arabic language in the Middle East. That program offers college credit as well, and has 40 hours of Arabic language instruction, as well as visiting the Dead Sea and Petra and other sites as well. And all of our programs are very immersive, and I'll talk more about that as we go into the program structure as well. The 2 Spain and France language programs listed here are 4-week programs, but we also have a Spain cultural discovery and France cultural discovery program. Those are both 3-week programs that fall within the cultural discovery and the arts theme. And then we have our Japan anime and manga program, where students visit an anime studio in Japan and create their own animation. Ghana, contemporary arts and culture, and that is an internship program. So we have 2 internship programs this summer. Both of them have group internships. So in the Ghana program, the internship is related to contemporary art, will either be with a community-based arts organization or a contemporary art gallery in Ghana. And everyone in your group will be participating in the same internship alongside you. Within sustainability and the environment, our final theme, we have Ecuador, the Galapagos Islands, and the Andes. And that program is quite unique in that you will travel to the Galapagos Islands and see the great biodiversity between the islands as well as in the Andes. In Portugal, we have environmental studies and climate change, and that is another college credit bearing program. And in Peru, we have environmental studies and indigenous peoples, and that also is our other internship program. And students in this program will participate in a group internship with a community-based organization doing work alongside indigenous peoples related to climate and environmental studies. So our programs are collective, supportive, immersive, and experiential. So they are collective because you will participate in the program with your group as well as your 2 adult group leaders. So each program will have 10 to 16 high school students with 2 adult group leaders. And our programs are diverse. So because we've been around for 90 years, we're fortunate to have many generous alumni and donors who support our programs. And so in the past, over 50% of our participants receive some form of need-based scholarship support to participate in the program. And over the past few years, 2019 being the last year we had summer abroad programs, over 2/3 of our participants identified as students of color. We also had about 35 US states represented across our programs. So broad geographic representation, as well as socioeconomic, racial, and ethnic representation. Our programs are supportive. You'll receive assistance through the enrollment process all the way to your return home. We have 2 fully trained adult group leaders who I'll talk more about in this presentation as well, and group international flights. So you will meet your group and the your group leaders at the International Departure Airport in the United States, and you'll travel together as a group, both to your program country and on your return home. And our programs are immersive because we provide engagement with host communities through your homestay family experience, with community-based organizations and your peers. And our goal is to help you understand the local context, to really understand the historical and cultural sites that you'll be visiting by having and being immersed in the daily life of a homestay family. And that our programs are not a tourism opportunity. It's really a learning experience for you. And then our programs are experiential because we follow the experiential learning model, which really means just learning by doing. So you'll have an experience on the program, you'll reflect and think about that experience, and your group leaders will help you through this process by discussions and analyzing what you might have learned and then applying it to the program or to your future back in the United States after the program. And we encourage our participants to be quick to observe while you're traveling and slow to judge. So our group leaders, as I mentioned, each program of 10 to 16 high school students has 2 adult trained experienced leaders. Many of them are teachers and professionals who have experience working with youth. We train our group leaders on our student health, safety, and well-being, our risk management policies and procedures, as well as our educational philosophy of experiential learning and collective learning. And they are trained on our program logistics and travel support. So before the programs at the end of June, we have a week-long training here at our campus in Southern Vermont, where all of our group leaders come here and have this in-person training. And we also work with international local partners abroad, our partner offices, who have deep ties to local communities. They're local people living in our program countries. They're not expatriates who've moved there to run our programs. They provide local resources and services, and they lead many of the excursions that will happen during the program. Oftentimes, they work with guides. For example, in one of our programs in the past, our Costa Rica program had a bird expert who actually was employed by our partner in Costa Rica, who traveled with the group and pointed out different bird species. And our local international partners abroad also coordinate the homestays. And so they recruit our volunteer homestay families and they train them about what it's like to host a US participant. So all of the programs will begin, as I said, at a US departure airport. So if you're traveling to Africa or Europe, you'll depart most likely from JFK International Airport in New York City. If you're participating in one of our programs in Latin America, you'll depart from most likely Miami. In the past, we've also sent students from Houston and Atlanta as well to travel to Latin America. We also, for students who are traveling to Asia or the Pacific, will depart from San Francisco or Los Angeles. So you'll meet your group leaders, the rest of your group at the airport. You'll immediately start to get to know each other. Your group leaders will facilitate icebreakers to help that process along. And then you'll travel together as a group on your international flight to your program country. And during the first few days of the program, you'll participate in a cross-cultural orientation where you will spend a few days in the capital or other major city of the program country. You will work on your survival language skills. You will work on increasing your confidence and cultural knowledge while you're a traveler in the program. And then you'll practice and learn local norms. So your group leaders will lead discussions on greetings in your program country and what personal space, how it might be different from what it is in the United States, what the food will be like while you're traveling, as well as review important health, safety, and security considerations to be aware of while you're traveling on the program. And one of the activities that your group leaders might have you do is a scavenger hunt. So they might say to you, you're in Paris for one of our France programs, and they'll say to maybe 3 or 4 of you, okay, the 3 of you go into this local market and purchase, breakfast for everybody in the group. Use only, the euros that you have, or here's some money to go do this for the group. And that will, enable you to get into that local space, to interact with people in the market, practice your French, and learn, what it's like to be a traveler there. And you're immersed in the experience and learning by having that scavenger hunt. So our homestays are between 1 and 3 weeks. So I mentioned that our programs are 3 to 4 weeks long during the month of July. So all programs will have a homestay. When you're not in a homestay, you'll be traveling with your group, staying in hostels or hotels throughout the program. But during your homestay, you'll participate in the daily life of a local community and have days when you're just with your host family, having meals with them, doing activities with them. You might play soccer with your host siblings, or if your host siblings are in school during this time of year, you might go to school with them and learn what that's like. And everybody in your group, as well as your group leaders, will be in the same host community, and that could be in the same region or town. So some of our programs, the homestay could be in a more rural, small community where you could be a 5-minute walk away from the rest of your group and your group leaders. Other programs that might have a more urban homestay, for example, in France, you could be a 15 or 20-minute bus ride away from your other group mates and your group leaders. But you will have days when you are getting together with your group and doing activities with them during the homestay. But as I mentioned, you'll also have days when you're just with your host family. And our homestay families go through an extensive recruitment and vetting process that is led by our international partner offices abroad. And many of our homestay families have been hosting for several years, or many years in a row. And for example, our Germany partner is our original partner from 1932 when we sent Donald Watt, he sent his first group to Germany. So we really encourage you to think about, as you're looking at our programs, you're looking at the website, reading about them, you'll see we have sample itineraries on the website for each of our programs, and can really get a lot of detail by looking at that. And I'll share the program website on the chat when I'm done speaking. But really think about, what are you hoping to get out of this program? What, future major or career might you be considering? What programs might help you understand and engage with critical global issues like climate change, or human rights and LGBTQ rights, and the environment. So, and giving an overview of health and safety, we've been around for 90 years. So over that time, we really have developed an experienced and robust risk management policy. We have a 360-degree approach that focuses really on the mental and physical well-being of our participants. So that starts with the health form that you'll be asked to complete if you're selected to participate in the program. And by completing that form and having your physical, our team will review that information and look at maybe what accommodations we might need to provide to support you on the program. So that's really part of our process. That's where it starts, and then through your whole program experience. We do provide medical insurance coverage for accidents, illness, and any emergency evacuation while on the program. And I've been with World Learning for 11 years, and we've only had to evacuate someone once. So that's very rare. But if, in the event of an emergency, that is covered while you're on the program. And COVID, as everyone knows, we have a situation that is fluid and changing daily. And each of our program countries have different travel restrictions or different entry requirements to enter the country. For example, in our Netherlands program, the Netherlands currently requires travelers coming into the country to be tested every day that you are in the country. But other countries, it might just be that you need to be tested upon arrival, and then we would do testing throughout the program. But COVID vaccination is required to participate, as Kathleen mentioned, and we will be setting our final COVID protocols in the spring based on the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, the WHO, the World Health Organization, and local government recommendations and requirements. So as I mentioned, the situation is changing, but we are following it very closely, and we'll be working with our international partner offices and our senior leadership We also have programs that receive funding through the U.S. State Department, so we have experience and contacts there who provide us with guidance as well as we look at what the recommendations will be around masking and the entry requirements and so forth. But we are optimistic. We will see what happens with this new variant, but we are much more optimistic about offering abroad programs this summer than we were last year at this time, given that vaccination is possible for both our participants and our group leaders will be vaccinated as well. So our program tuition, which will be a full scholarship opportunity through the Global Travel Scholars Program, but typically our program tuition would cover all of your meals during the program. So that's part of the scholarship, 3 meals a day, your lodging while you're on the program, whether that's the orientation hotel or hostel or other accommodations, the homestay. All of your program activities that are listed on the program itinerary are covered. For example, if you're visiting a museum as part of the itinerary, the entry fee would be part of your program. And then any in-country transportation, if you need to take an in-country flight, some of our programs have a domestic flight once you arrive in the country, if you're traveling around the country with your group, and then your medical insurance that I mentioned. With this program, with the Global Travel Scholars, both your international airfare and your domestic airfare is covered. But as Kathleen mentioned, personal spending money, we recommend between about $200 and $600, depending on the length of your program and the location. So our program in Switzerland, for example, would be more expensive than our program in Ghana. So we would recommend probably closer to $600 if you were traveling to Switzerland, and $200 would likely be sufficient in Ghana. Your passport would also be covered as well. So Kathleen reviewed the application requirements, but you can find this information on our website as well, but I won't go into detail since we covered that earlier. When you do apply, however, this is important to note, on the program selection page of your application, so this is in January, not your initial application, this is phase 2 if you're selected to move forward in January. You will want to say that you were nominated to apply by your sponsoring organization, and then you would choose the Pittsburgh World Affairs, the World Affairs Council of Pittsburgh on the drop-down list that appears after you answer yes to that question. And that will waive typically we would have a $50 application fee, so that's not part of this application process when you get to phase 2. But the system will only know to waive that if you answer yes, you were nominated, and then choose the World Affairs Council of Pittsburgh. We do have another information session. If you would like to learn more, the experiment's hosting an informational session on December 11th. You can find more information about that on our website, but I definitely encourage you to check out our website, read more about the programs. Feel free to get in touch with me if you have any questions. You can also contact the parent or of a past participant if you're a parent. You can also contact an alum of our programs through our website. So all of our alumni ambassadors who've agreed to speak with prospective students are linked to the website under the apply page, and you can actually choose to speak with someone in the program country that you might be most interested in participating in. For example, if you'd like to speak with an alum of one of our Japan programs, you can choose Japan from the drop down and then find the list of students or parents that display, and then you can connect with them through a web form, and they'll get an email that you'd like to speak with them or email with them, and they'll respond back to you. So this is time that we have set aside for questions. So feel free to ask a question, or you could put a question in the chat.
Great. Yeah, and while we wait for questions to come in, thank you, Heather, for that. And I know that the council and the experiment both really believe in sort of the transformative effect of traveling and how it sort of shifts your mindset and your ability to become more globally minded. And so I really encourage all of you to apply. And also, if you know other young people who might be interested that are in the Pittsburgh region, please, they can still be connected to the scholarship. This video will be available. The recording of the video will be available on our YouTube channel soon. You'll get an email as well as registrants of the event with this so that you can reference back to it. You'll also get the council slides that were shared and the links to the application. So please feel free to share that with other young people that might be interested. If you know students that are interested outside of the region, you can also connect them directly to the experiment. And I know they have other financial aid available outside of the council's Global Travel Scholarship.